So yes, this is once again an episode without a video. There's only me talking. Quite primarily because it is fairly late. It is 10 p.m. as I'm just seeing, and I am gonna combine two things that I wanted to do today, and I shouldn't make this a habit. So I do hope that tomorrow is gonna be a bit better, but I had to work a little bit more today, just because it is what it is. And yeah, I've been working out for quite 1.25 or 3/4 of an hour. If you say it like this, anyway, so quite long. And so yeah, I haven't done anything up to this point than eating for an hour and working out for nearly 2 hours, which is like pretty dumb, to be honest, because I think I came home at like 6 or something, and I've kind of just quote unquote wasted 4 hours. But anyway, since I've already said that I'm going to combine two things that I wanted to do today, or I need to do today, we are going to go through, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to do so, but I'm just going to do so. I'm going to read Letters of, or from a Stoic. Yeah, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. And I'm going to go ahead with letter 6. And I don't know how far we're going to get, but I'm going to read them and we're going to see. I do hope that I'm also going to find an answer. It would actually be quite of an interesting thing to a question for myself that I'm having in my life at this point in time. But we're going to see, or I'm going to see. So letter 6, which is on page 40, apparently, I guess. I see in myself, Lucilius, not just an improvement, but a transformation, although I would not venture as yet to assure you, or even to hope, that there is nothing left in me needing to be changed. Naturally, there are a lot of things about me requiring to be built up or refined down or eliminated. Even this, the fact that it perceives the failing it was unaware of in itself before, is evidence of a change for the better in one's character. In the case of some sick people, it is a matter for congratulation when they come to realize for themselves that they are sick. I should very much like, then, to share this also sudden metamorphosis of mine with you. Doing so would make me start to feel a surer faith in the friendship that exists between us, that true friendship which not hope, nor fear, nor concern for personal advantage ever sunders. That friendship in which and for which people are ready to die. I can give you plenty of examples of people who have not been lacking a friend, but friendship. Something that can never happen when mutual inclination draws two personalities together in a fellowship of desire for all that is honorable. Why cannot it happen? Why cannot it happen? Well, because they know that everything, and especially their setback, is shared between them. You can't imagine how much of an alteration I see each day bringing about in me. Send me too, you will be saying, the things you have found so effectual. Indeed, I desire to transfer every one of them to you. Part of my joy in learning is that it puts me in a position to teach. Nothing, however outstanding and however helpful, will ever give me any pleasure if the knowledge is to be for my benefit alone. If wisdom were offered me on the one condition that I should keep it shut away and not divulge it to anyone, I should reject it. There is no enjoying the possession of anything valuable unless one has someone to share it with. I shall send you accordingly the actual books themselves, and to save you a lot of trouble hunting all over the place for passages likely to be of use to you, I shall mark the passages so that you can turn straight away to the words I approve and admire. Personal converse, though, and daily intimacy with someone will be of more benefit to you than any discourse. You should really be here on the spot, firstly, because people believe their eyes rather more than their ears, and secondly, because the road is a long one if one proceeds by way of precepts, but short and factual, if by way of personal example. Cleanthes would never have been the image of Zeno if he had merely heard him lecture. He lived with him, studied his private life, watched him to see if he lived in accordance to his own principle. Plato, Aristotle, and a host of other philosophies, all destined to take different paths, derived more Sophists, all destined to take different paths. More from Socrates' character than from his words. It wasn't Epicurus' school, but living under the same roof as Epicurus that turned Metrodorus, Hermarchus, and Polyaenus anyway, into great men. And yet I do not summon you to my side solely for the sake of your own progress, but for my own as well, for we shall be one of the utmost benefit to each other. Meanwhile, since I owe you the daily allowance, I'll tell you what took my fancy in the writings of Hecato today. And there is a quote, apparently. What progress have I made? I am beginning to be my own friend. That is progress indeed. Such a person will never be alone, and you may be sure he is a friend of all. Letter 7. And I just don't want to make it as a fucking boring, like, audiobook-ish thing. But, if there's something to say, I'm going to say something. And, yeah. I mean, I do think that sharing something is incredibly important. But I do also feel this kind of notion that he understands that he does not want to put his own words and himself on a pedestal. If I can explain it in the right way, in this way, which is something that I've seen as well. I mean, I don't know, like you can say something, you can give advice by saying it in various different ways. You can be actually very confident in yourself and be like, well, this is what it is, and this is the truth, and this is right, and whatnot. But you could also say it in a more human way, maybe in a more maybe self-concerning, or sounding that you're actually not quite sure that this is your opinion, and overstating that it is your opinion. And yeah, I don't know, like to just make it more humble, maybe. Might not be the right word, but I do think that you know what I mean. You ask me to say what you should consider it particularly important to avoid. My answer is this: a mass crowd. It is something to which you cannot entrust yourself yet without risk. I, at any rate, am ready to confess my own frailty in this respect. I never come back home with quite the same moral character I went out with. Something or other becomes unsettled where I had achieved internal peace. Someone or other of the things I had put to flight reappears on the scene. We who are recovering from a prolonged spiritual sickness are in the same condition as invalids who have been affected to such an extent by prolonged indisposition that they cannot once be taken out of doors without ill effects. Associating with people in large numbers is actually harmful. There is not one of them that will not make some vice or other attractive to us, or leave us carrying the imprint of it, or bedazzled or all awareness with it. And inevitably enough, the larger the size of the crowd we mingle with, the greater the danger. But nothing is as ruinous to the character as sitting away one's time at a show, for it is then through the medium of entertainment that vices creep into one with more than usual ease. What do you take me to mean? That I go home more selfish, more self-seeking, and more self-indulgent? Yes, and what is more, a person crueler and less human through having been in contact with human beings. I happened to go to one of these shows at the time of the lunch hour interlude, expecting there to be some light and witty entertainment, then some respite for the purpose of affording people's eyes a rest from human blood. Far from it. All the earlier contests were charity in comparison. The nonsense is dispensed with now. What we have now is murder, pure and simple. The combatants have nothing to protect them. Their whole bodies are exposed to the blows. Every thrust they launch gets home. A great many spectators prefer this to the ordinary matches and even to the special popular demand ones. And quite naturally, there are no helm and no shields repelling the weapons. What is the point of armor or of skill? All that sort of thing just makes the death slower in coming. In the morning, men are thrown to the lions and the bears, but it is the spectators they are thrown to in the lunch hour. The spectator insists that each on killing his man shall be thrown against another to be killed in his turn, and the eventual victor is reserved by them for some other form of butchery. The only exit for the contestants is death. Fire and steel keep the slaughters going, and all this happens while the arena is virtually empty. But here was a highway robber. He killed a man, and what of it? Granted that as a murderer he deserved this punishment. What have you done, you wretched fellow, to deserve to watch it? Kill him, flog him, burn him. Why does he run at the other man's weapon in such a cowardly way? Why isn't he less half-hearted about killing? Why isn't he a bit more enthusiastic about dying? Well, whip him forward to get his wounds, make them each offer the other a bare breast and trade blow for blow in them. And when there is an interval in the show, let's have some throats cut in the meantime so that there is something happening. Come now, I say, surely you people realize, if you realize nothing else, that bad examples have a way of recoiling on those who set them. Give thanks to the immortal gods that the man to whom you are given a lesson cruelly are not in a position to profit from it. When a mind is impressionable and has none to firm a hold on what is right, it must be secured from the crowd. It is easy so. I don't want to repeat this again. When a mind is impressionable and has none to firm a hold on what is right, it must be secured from the crowd. It is so easy for it to go over to the majority. Socrates, Cato, or Laelius might have been shaken in his principles by a multitude of people different from himself. Such in a measure of the inability of any of us, even as we perfect our personality's adjustment to withstand the onset of vices when they come with such a mighty following. A single example of extravagance or greed does a lot of harm. An intimate who leads a pampered life gradually makes one soft and flabby. A wealthy neighbor provokes cravings in one. A companion with a malicious nature tends to rub off some of his rust even on someone of an innocent and open-hearted nature. What then do you imagine the effect on a person's character is when the assault comes from the world at large? You must inevitably either hate or imitate the world, but the right thing is to shun both courses. You should neither become like the bad because there are many, or be an enemy of the many because they are unlike you. Retire into yourself as much as you can. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those who you are capable of improving. The process is a mutual one. Men learn as they teach, and there is no reason why any pride in advertising your talents abroad should lure you forward into the public eye, inducing you to give readings of your works or deliver lectures. I should be glad to see you doing that if what you had to offer them was suitable for the crowd I have been talking about. But the fact is, not one of them is really capable of understanding you. You might perhaps come across one here and there, but even they would need to be trained and developed by you to a point where they could grasp your teaching. For whose benefit then did I learn it all? If it was for you or for your own benefit that you learn it, you have no call to fear that your trouble may have been wasted. Just to make sure that I have not been learning solely for my own benefit today, let me share with you 3 fine quotations I have come across each concerned with something like the same idea. One of them is by way of payment of the usual debts so far as this letter is concerned, and the other two you are to regard as an advance in account. To me, says Democritus, a single man is a crowd, and a crowd is a single man. Equally good is the answer given by the person, whoever it was, his identity is uncertain, who, when asked what was the object of all the trouble he took over a piece of craftsmanship when it would never reach more than a very few people, replied, "A few is enough for me, so is one, and so is none." The third is a nice expression used by Epicurus in a letter to one of his colleagues. "I'm writing this," he says, "not for the eyes of the many, but for yours alone. For each of us is audience enough for the other. Lay these up in your heart, my dear Lucilius, that you may scorn the pleasure that comes from the majority's approval. The many speak highly of you, but have you really any grounds for satisfaction with yourself if you're the kind of person the many understand? Your marriage should not be outward facing." Should I go through letter 3 as well? 9, 8, I'm sorry. Let's see what the time says. But I think the time is, let's do it. Are you of all people, you write, really telling me to avoid the crowd, to retire from the world and fund contentment in a good conscience? Where are those Stoic rules of yours that call on a man to die in harness? Come now, do I really give you the impression that I advocate a life of inactivity? I have only buried myself away behind closed doors in order to be able to be of use to more people. With me, no day is ever wielded or whiled away at ease. I claim a good part of my nights for study. I have no time for sleep. I just succumb to it, keeping my eyes at their work when they are heavy-lidded and exhausted from lack of rest. I have withdrawn from affairs as well as from society, and from my own affairs in particular. I am acting on behalf of later generations. I am writing down a few things that may be of use to them. I am committing to writing some helpful recommendations which might be compared to the formula of successful medications, the effectiveness of which I have experienced in the case of my own sores, which may not have been completely cured, but have at least ceased to spread. I am pointing out to others the right path which I have recognized only late in life, when I am worn out with my wanderings. Avoid, I cry, whatever is approved of by the mob and things that are the gift of chance. Whenever circumstance brings some welcome thing your way, stop in suspicion and alarm. Wild animals and fish alike are taken in by this or that inviting prospect. Do you look on them as presents given you by fortune? They are snares. Anyone among you who wishes to lead a secure life will do this very best to steer well wide of these baited bounties, which comprise yet another instance of the errors we miserable creatures fall into. We think these things are ours, when in fact it is we who are caught. The track leads to precipices. Life on that giddy level ends in a fall. Once more, prosperity begins to carry us off course. We are no more down with the consolidation that she has been held on her course, or of going down once and for all. Fortune does not just capsize the boat, she hurls it headlong on the rocks and dashes in it to peaks. Cling, therefore, to the sound and wholesome plan of life. Indulge the body just so far as suffices for good health. It needs to be treated somewhat strictly to prevent it from being disobedient to the spirit. Your food should appease your hunger, your drink quench your thirst, your clothing keep out the cold, your house be a protection against inclement weather. It makes no difference whether it is built of turf or a variegant marble imported from another country. what you have to understand is that makes a person just as good a roof as gold does. Spurn everything that is added on by way of decoration and display by unnecessary labor. Reflect that nothing merits admiration except the spirit, the impressiveness of which prevents it from being impressed by anything. If these are the things I'm saying to myself, if these are the things that I'm saying to future generations, don't you think I'm doing more good than when I go into court to enter into a recognizance of someone's behalf, or stamp my seal on a will, or lend my assistance by word or action in the Senate to some candidate for office? Those who appear inactive are believe me engaged in far more important activity. They are dealing with matters divine and human at the same moment. But the time has come to make an end, and in accordance with this practice, I've started to make some disbursement on this letter's behalf. For this I shall not draw on my own resources. I still turn over the pages of Epicurus, and the following saying, one I read today comes from him. To win true freedom, you must be a slave to philosophy. A person who surrenders and subjects himself to her doesn't have his application deferred from day to day. He's emancipated on the spot, the very service of philosophy being freedom. Quite possibly you'll be demanding to know why I'm quoting so many fine sayings from Epicurus rather than ones belonging to our own school. But why should you think of them as belonging to Epicurus and not as common property? Think how many poets say things that philosophers have said or ought to have said, not to mention the tragedians or our native Roman drama, which has a serious element in it as well and stands halfway between comedy and tragedy. Think of the quantity of brilliant lines to be found lying about in farces alone. Think of the number of Popilius's verses that really ought to be spoken by actors wearing the tragic buskins instead of barefooted pantomime actors. I'll quote one verse of his which belongs to philosophy and the same facet of philosophy that I was occupied with just now. A verse in which he proclaims that gifts which chance brings our way are not to be regarded as possessions. If you pray a thing may, and it does come your way, this a long way from being your own. Don't want to repeat again. If you pray a thing may, and it does come your way, this a long way from being your own. I recall you expressing the same idea a good deal more happily and successantly. What fortune has made yours is not your own. As easy as it could be. And I can't pass over the ever happier expression of yours. The boon that could be given can be withdrawn. This being from your own stock, I'm not debating it to your account. Exclamation mark. And with that being said, I wish you the best health of happiness and also success, and also hope that you're going to remind yourself and you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy, and basically means just being a nice person. And then being remembered as a good person. Yeah, or something. 3 other questions that I have here are: why are you here? What are you trying to change, and what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea. And one last thing is, what could you essentially say to another person that's indeed going to change their life? Because I totally believe that we all can say something. We all can communicate something that is indeed going to change a person's life. Whether it is, making somebody smile for a second, for a minute, for a day, for a week, or it is indeed going to change their life. I think we all can communicate something that is impacting others in a good way. Of course, also in a bad way, but in a good way. And yeah, with that being said, bye-bye. Please take care of yourself, your family, and your loved ones. And yeah, I'm hopefully going to see you the next time. So, bye-bye.